For many generations the apex species lived in fear. They were known across the outer systems as fast, strong, and hard to catch. Because of this, other races hunted them. Some hunted for sport. Some hunted for profit. Others hunted them just to prove they could. The apex learned long ago that survival did not come from fighting. It came from running, hiding, and never staying in one place for long. Their cities were not tall or proud. They were hidden inside asteroids, deep forests, or drifting stations that could be abandoned in hours. Children learned silence before they learned speech. Elders taught paths of escape before teaching history. Every apex grew up knowing one truth: if they were seen, they would be chased. Far away in a quiet stretch of space, James served as a human scout. His job was simple. He checked trade routes, scanned for threats, and reported strange activity. Most days were calm. Long hours passed with only stars and empty signals. James liked it that way. It gave him time to think. One day his scanners picked up something unusual. Small ships, moving fast with no clear pattern. They vanished and reappeared at the edge of sensor range. James adjusted his systems and followed at a safe distance. What he saw did not look like smugglers or pirates. It looked like fear. The ships jumped suddenly, leaving behind traces of damaged hulls and scattered cargo. James followed the trail and found something worse. A broken station drifted in silence. Inside were signs of panic. Personal items floated freely. No bodies remained, but the marks of weapons were clear. James felt uneasy. This was not a battle. It was a chase. He sent the data back to human space and continued his patrol, now alert. Over the next few weeks he found more signs. Empty settlements. Burned docking ports. Escape routes used too often to be random. A pattern began to form and James did not like it. Back on Earth, Emily worked in a quiet office filled with screens and old records. She was a diplomat, but much of her work involved history. She believed that the past often explained the present. When James's reports arrived, they caught her attention. She searched deep into archived data. Old trade logs. Forgotten warnings. Records marked as unimportant by other powers. Slowly, a name appeared again and again. Apex. The files were thin and scattered, as if someone had tried to erase them. But enough remained. Emily learned that the Apex were once respected traders. They had strong bodies and quick minds. Over time, other races began to see them as trophies. Hunting them became common. No council stopped it. No law protected them. Emily leaned back in her chair, her expression calm but firm. She had seen this before many times in history. A group labeled as less than others. Violence explained away as tradition or necessity. She contacted James directly. "What you found is not random," she said. "They are being hunted." James said nothing for a moment. He looked again at the images on his screen. Small ships running. Broken homes left behind. "They're not fighters," he finally said. "No," Emily replied. "They are survivors." Emily brought her findings to the Human Council. She did not raise her voice. She did not accuse. She simply showed the pattern. The missing loss. The silent approval of cruelty. Humans listened closely. Humanity had fought many wars, but they remembered their own past well. They remembered what it meant to be hunted, controlled, and judged as weak. This was not a matter of power. It was a matter of choice. Humanity did not see prey. They saw injustice. Orders were given quietly. No public threats were made. No messages sent to the hunters. Human ships changed course one by one toward the outer systems. Officially they were patrols. In truth they were observers. James was among the first to arrive. He kept his distance but stayed close enough to watch. He saw the hunters clearly now. Larger ships, armed and confident. They moved without fear, sure that no one would challenge them. James recorded everything. In one system he saw Apex ships scatter as hunters arrived. In another he watched a group surrender only to be captured. James clenched his jaw but did not act. Not yet. Emily worked constantly, speaking to captains, planners, and leaders. She pushed for one clear rule: humans would not attack unless necessary, but they would no longer look away. Weeks passed. Human presence grew. The hunters noticed. They slowed. They began to avoid certain routes. Confusion spread among them. The Apex noticed too. At first they did not trust the new ships. They had learned not to trust anyone. But human ships did not chase them. They did not scan aggressively. They stayed between the Apex and the hunters, like silent shadows. One small Apex vessel sent a weak signal, asking a single question. "Why are you here?" James answered himself. "You are not alone," he said simply. The message spread quietly through Apex channels. Hope did not come all at once. It came slowly, like light at the edge of a long night. The hunt zones were no longer empty. They were watched. And for the first time in generations, the Apex felt something new. Tom. Michael stood on the command deck with his hands behind his back. He was not a loud man and he did not like grand plans. He believed in watching first. Beside him, Jessica studied the live feeds in silence. Their task group was small by human standards, only a few ships, but every crew member was chosen carefully. Their orders were clear. Observe. Record. Do not interfere unless lives were about to be lost. The human ships moved slowly through the outer systems. They did not hide, but they did not announce themselves either. To the hunters they looked like normal patrols. To the Apex they were strange shadows that did not chase. In one system, Michael watched as a group of hunters arrived near a drifting Apex settlement. The Apex ships were small and old. Families lived inside them, moving together for safety. When the hunters appeared, panic spread fast. Engines flared. Ships scattered in all directions. The hunters were prepared. They released nets of energy that slowed engines without destroying them. One by one, Apex ships lost power and drifted helplessly. Jessica's jaw tightened as she watched. Record everything, Michael said quietly. John worked at a console nearby. His job was to capture every moment. Ship movements, weapon use, communication signals. He said nothing, his face calm, but his eyes stayed sharp. He knew this data would matter later. Ashley handled long-range transmission. She compressed the files and sent them back to human space in steady bursts. There was a lot to send. Too much. The hunters moved with skill and confidence. They boarded Apex ships, separating families with cold efficiency. Some Apex resisted. They were stunned or restrained. No one helped them. No one ever had. Human ships stayed at the edge of the system. They did not fire. They did not speak. The hunters noticed them but showed no concern. They think we're neutral, Jessica said. Michael nodded. Let them believe that. In another system the same pattern repeated. Apex settlements erased. Supplies taken. Structures burned or broken so they could not be used again. The hunters left nothing behind but empty space and fear. John recorded a moment when an Apex child clung to an adult as hunters pulled them apart. The sound of the child's cry came through the audio feed. John's hands paused for a second, then kept working. Ashley sent the clip without comment. Across human space the data arrived. Captains stopped what they were doing to watch. Crews gathered in silence. Leaders reviewed the files late into the night. There were no speeches. No anger-filled messages. Just a growing, shared understanding. This was not war. This was hunting. Human history was full of moments like this. Times when people were taken because they were weak, different, or alone. Times when silence allowed cruelty to continue. The truth spread fast. Michael's task group continued their work. They followed the hunters, always close, always watching. They mapped their routes, their supply lines, their habits. The hunters were good, but they were careless. They had never been challenged. Jessica noticed patterns. They rely on fear, she said. Once fear breaks, they'll hesitate. Michael agreed. We won't break it yet. One day, a hunter ship drifted too close to a human vessel. For a moment, weapons powered up on both sides. The tension was thick, heavy enough to feel. Then the hunter ship turned away. They don't think we'll act, John said. They're right, Michael replied. For now. The Apex began to notice changes. Hunters hesitated when human ships were nearby. Traps were set more carefully. Some hunts were cancelled without explanation. Small moments but important ones. An Apex elder sent a cautious message, short and unsure. Are you watching? Michael answered through a secure channel. Yes. That was all he said. Behind the scenes, humanity prepared. Ship crews trained quietly. Engineers adjusted systems for non-lethal control. Planners studied hunter behavior and designed counters. Every step was careful. Every action measured. There were no threats sent to the hunters. No demands. Humanity did not announce itself as a protector. They did not claim moral ground. They simply prepared. Jessica reviewed reports from Earth. Support was nearly complete. Even those who argued against involvement fell silent after seeing the recordings. This won't end quickly, she said. No, Michael replied. But it will end. Another hunt began in a distant system. Apex ships ran as usual, but this time something changed. Human ships moved slightly closer. Not enough to provoke but enough to be seen. The hunters paused. Their formation shifted. Confusion passed through their channels. Still they continued. Michael watched closely. His voice remained calm as he gave quiet instructions. Human ships adjusted position, blocking escape paths the hunters expected to use. No shots were fired. The hunters finished their work and left, but slower than before. Less confident. Michael allowed himself a small breath. "They're starting to notice," Jessica said. "Yes," he replied. "And soon they'll understand." John saved the final recordings of the day. Ashley sent them home. The flow of truth never stopped. The hunters believed humans would stay neutral. They believed silence meant permission. They were wrong. Humanity was done watching without preparing. And when the moment came, there would be no warning words. Only action. David studied the star map in silence. The lights of many systems glowed softly on the screen. Each one marked a place where the hunters moved freely. Each one also marked fear. Lauren stood beside him, arms folded, thinking carefully before speaking. They were not planning a battle. They were planning an end. "This will not be like before," Lauren said. "We do not chase the apex. We remove the danger." David nodded. "We become the pressure." Human ships began to move in ways no one expected. They did not rush into the hunt zones. They waited. They learned. They watched the hunters' habits, their supply routes, and their escape paths. Time worked in humanity's favor, and they knew it. Daniel worked from a command center far from the front lines. His role was rescue. He mapped safe paths through space, marking systems where Apex ships could hide and refuel. He coordinated with small human teams placed in quiet locations, ready to guide and protect. James was back among the stars, flying close to Apex routes. He spoke softly over secure channels, using simple words and calm tones. He did not give orders. He gave options. "This way is clear," he would say. "Follow when ready." The Apex listened, slowly at first, then with growing trust. The hunters noticed the change. Hunts failed more often. Traps closed on empty space. Apex ships slipped away at the last moment, guided by paths the hunters did not know. Frustration grew. David and Lauren allowed it. Human ships appeared at the edges of hunter operations. Not close enough to provoke, but close enough to be felt. They cut off supply ships quietly. Fuel convoys went missing. Communication relays failed without damage. The hunters searched for enemies and found none. In one system, a hunter fleet entered a familiar zone, expecting easy targets. Instead, they found human ships waiting ahead, calm and steady. The humans did not fire. They held position. A message was sent, clear and simple. "Stand down. Leave this system." The hunters laughed and advanced. That was when the hunt changed. Human ships moved with care, not speed. They blocked paths, forcing the hunters to turn. Each turn led to another human ship. No weapons fired. No shouting. Just pressure, steady and unbroken. The hunters tried to break through. Human systems absorbed the impact and held. When hunter weapons powered up, human ships responded with precise, disabling strikes. Engines slowed. Weapons shut down. No hulls were destroyed. "Repeat," the message came again. "Stand down." Some hunters did. Their ships were secured. Crews were treated, not harmed. They were disarmed and held safely. Mercy was given, but only because they stopped. Others refused. They pushed harder, firing wildly. Human response changed. Patience remained, but mercy ended. Ships were disabled fully, drifting and powerless. Crews were rescued and contained. No deaths. No escape. James guided Apex ships through safe corridors during the confrontation. Families passed silently behind human lines, watching the hunters lose control for the first time. Daniel adjusted routes in real time, keeping paths open. "Clear," he said again and again. Each word carried safety. Across several systems, the pattern repeated. Hunters entered confident and left broken or captured. News spread fast among them. Some fled before humans arrived. Others never hunted again. David watched the reports with quiet focus. "They are learning," he said. Lauren nodded. "This is the lesson." The Apex began to change. They no longer scattered at the first sign of danger. They waited for signals. They trusted human guidance. Fear loosened its grip, slowly but surely. One Apex leader sent a message to James. It was short. "We are not running." James read it twice before replying. "You don't have to," he said. The hunters now knew the truth. Humans were not joining the hunt for trophies or power. They were ending it. And they would not stop until the last chase was over. The hunters did not accept defeat easily. As their routes closed and their hunts failed, they grew angry. Some gathered their forces and struck back. They attacked supply ships, set traps for human patrols, and spread false signals to confuse rescue paths. For the first time, the hunters felt fear of losing control. Human crews responded with calm focus. They did not rush. They did not panic. When hunter ships appeared, human vessels moved into position with quiet precision. Weapons were not used to destroy but to stop. Engines shut down. Target systems went dark. Ships were left drifting, alive but powerless. Cut off from fuel and support, the hunters began to weaken. Their supply lines vanished one by one. Stations that once welcomed them closed their docks. Markets refused to trade. The hunters found themselves isolated, something they had never expected. In one system, a hunter group tried to ambush a human escort. The trap failed. Human ships detected the movement early and responded with careful timing. The hunters lost their weapons in seconds. No explosions. No deaths. Just silence and surrender. Across the stars, the message became clear. Fighting humans did not bring glory. It brought an end. While fleets moved and plans unfolded, Emily worked in a different way. She did not stand on command decks or give battle orders. She spoke to the Apex leaders, one group at a time, through secure channels. Her voice was calm and steady. "We are not here to rule you," she said. "We will not take your land or your future." The Apex listened but did not answer right away. Trust was hard for them. Too many promises in the past had led to loss. Emily continued. "We will protect you only as long as you choose it. Your choices remain your own." Some leaders asked questions. Others stayed silent. Emily did not push. She waited. James watched the change from his ship. Apex vessels no longer jumped away at the first sign of danger. They stayed close to human patrols, moving with care but not panic. Small steps but important ones. Daniel reported fewer emergency rescues. "They're holding their ground," he said. Lauren noticed Apex ships forming defensive lines of their own, simple but organized. "They're learning to stand," she said softly. The hunters saw this too. They tried to break it. In one final push, several hunter fleets moved together, aiming to crush an Apex group before humans could respond. They failed. Human ships arrived in formation, calm and prepared. Apex ships did not scatter. They held position behind human lines, engines ready, weapons aimed but steady. The battle was short. Human crews disabled hunter weapons and engines with clean strikes. Supply ships were captured. Communication was cut. The hunters had nowhere to run. A message was sent once more. "Stand down." This time most did. After the fight, something changed. Apex leaders requested a meeting. Not in secret, not in fear. Openly. Emily spoke to them again, this time with human and Apex ships present. No guards. No threats. "You stood today," Emily said. "That was your choice." An Apex elder replied, voice steady but emotional. "We have never stood before." Emily answered simply. "You are not prey." The word spread fast. Trust did not arrive all at once. It grew slowly, built on action, not promises. Humans kept their distance unless asked. They shared information. They trained Apex crews when invited. They left when told. Over time, Apex ships began to fly beside human ones, not behind them. Patrols became shared efforts. Rescue paths turned into trade routes. The Apex stopped running. For the first time in their history, they stood openly in space, visible and unafraid. They were not owned. They were not protected like children. They were allies. And as they stood beside humans, the galaxy watched and understood something new. Strength was not in the hunt. It was in standing together. Silence returned to the outer systems. Not the silence of fear, but the calm that comes after danger is gone. The hunter fleets were gone, their ships captured, dismantled, or scattered far from Apex space. No chase lights burned across the stars anymore. The hunt had ended. Across the galaxy, records began to change. Old files were opened and corrected. Warnings were removed. Labels erased. The Apex were no longer listed as prey, targets, or trophies. They were marked as a free people, protected by law and watched by many eyes. No speeches announced this change. It happened quietly, system by system, as truth replaced old lies. Humanity did not hold celebrations. There were no victory parades or loud claims of power. Human fleets did not stay in large numbers. They left small guardian groups behind, simple patrols meant to watch, not control. James visited an Apex station one last time. The docks were open and bright. Children moved freely instead of hiding. Traders spoke openly instead of whispering. The air felt lighter. An Apex leader stood beside him, looking out at the stars. You could have ruled, the leader said. Others would have. James shook his head. That was never the point. Emily completed her final reports and closed the files. The work here was done. Agreements were signed that respected Apex choices and independence. Nothing forced. Nothing taken. Michael and Jessica reviewed the last patrol schedules. Human ships would slowly withdraw. Apex defenses would remain, now trained and confident. They'll be fine, Jessica said. Yes, Michael replied. Because they believe it too. David and Lauren watched from a distance as human fleets changed course. The stars ahead were full of new problems, new injustices waiting to be seen. Humanity did not need to stay where balance had been restored. Daniel shut down the emergency rescue network. For the first time, there were no distress calls from Apex space. The silence felt earned. The hunters who had survived spread stories of what happened. Not of human weapons or strength, but of patience. Of ships that waited. Of mercy given only once. Of control taken without cruelty. Those stories traveled far. Other species listened. The galaxy learned a simple lesson, passed quietly from system to system. When humans join a hunt, it is not to dominate. It is to end it. And so humanity moved on, leaving behind something stronger than fear. They left hope.